At least 11,000 people are now thought to have died. Many thousands more are still missing after floods devastated eastern Libya.
International rescue teams have arrived in the worst affected regions, but doctors are warning that survivors remain in danger from potentially contaminated water. Our correspondent Simon Jones has the latest.
The number of dead is rising in a landscape that has been transformed, devastated. This is what is left after more than 250 times the average monthly rainfall came down in just 24 hours and cascaded onto Derna. Entire neighbourhoods swept away as two dams on the outskirts of the city failed.
A catastrophe hit Libya, a huge catastrophe. May God accept the victims. We pray for their families.
Despite the scale of the destruction, the hunt for survivors goes on. Some international help is arriving. These dogs are part of a Spanish rescue team involved in a search against the clock.
We've been working all day on the buildings that have been completely destroyed by the dams bursting. The scale of destruction in the city is devastating, with a huge number of buildings damaged and victims missing. That's why we were working as hard as we can.
People survey the little that's left with a sense of disbelief and with questions. Why weren't residents warned the storm was coming and given time to escape? Why weren't the dams maintained to a higher standard? On the water's edge, the grim task of looking for the bodies that were swept away into the sea. It may be some time before the true extent of the tragedy is known. The UN is talking of a calamity of epic proportions.
This incident is something that we never seen in Libya before. Unfortunately, it claimed thousands of lives, and still there's other thousands that are missing. All efforts are put now for rescue teams to try to be able to manage this disaster, but it's really challenging.
A challenge made even harder in a country that's governed by two rival groups. Libya's internationally recognised regime has launched an investigation, promising anyone whose actions or failure to act played a part in the dams collapsing will be held accountable. But few here have confidence in the ability of those in power to respond adequately to the sheer scale of what's happened in a country ravaged by years of instability and chaos. Simon Jones, BBC News.
Let's go to our correspondent Anna Foster, who's in the city of Benghazi this morning. Anna, good morning to you. It's just getting the aid to the right places, isn't it?
It is. It's exactly that. And that really takes two forms, Naga. The first is actually getting the aid into the country in the first place, because Libya has been ravaged by more than a decade of civil war, and it just doesn't have contingencies in place. It doesn't have the equipment. It doesn't have things like the medical care, for example. All of those things had already been decimated by the civil war. So it's getting those things in from outside. But of course, bear in mind that Libya is split really into two halves. There are two different opposing governments, and just getting permission, frankly, in some cases, to bring that aid into the country is enormously difficult. And then when it gets here, it's moving it from Benghazi to Derna. And again, that is environmental issues. The fact that the road in some places has been completely washed away, the fact that people face checkpoints and the risk of sporadic violence along the route as well. And then when they finally get to Derna, you saw there some of the images that are coming out that are just extraordinary. Words like wasteland are being used because parts of the land of the earth have just been carved away by the sheer force of this water. And it's all about, in many ways, the survivors now who are trying to battle against the elements, whose homes have been lost, who are living among these many, many bodies and who are trying to avoid things like disease. It is an enormously difficult, catastrophic moment, Naga, and really the scale of this is even now still unfolding.
Indeed. Anna, thanks very much for that. That's Anna there for us in Benghazi, Anna Foster.